FluoRender tutorial. Component analysis in streaming mode. In this video, we demonstrate the component analysis in the large data streaming mode. In the setting window, under Performance, enable large data streaming. Lower the large data size to 0 and keep the other settings, so that any dataset will be divided into bricks of 256 voxels in size. To analyze the disks in the example, open the Component Analyzer. Click Generate to separate the disks into distinct components. Some large disks need a larger iteration number to be fully covered. Notice that components are generated within each brick and cannot cross borders. However, the analysis result combines components from a single structure. Information such as size and position is also calculated on the combined component. Clicking on a row in the component list highlights the structure and render view. Clicking in the render view also highlights the corresponding row on the list. Any part of a combined component can be clicked to retrieve the full structure. Hold down the Control key to add or remove highlighted components. Components can be filtered by size. Enable the min size and type in a number as the minimum voxel size. To select components larger than 5,000 voxels, clear the selection mask first. Then, click Append to select the components satisfying the size constraint. Each component is associated with a randomly generated ID. We can use the ID to select a specific component. However, the same ID may be duplicated in different bricks. We use both the brick ID and component ID to uniquely select a component in streaming mode. The component ID can be used for selection for only brick of ID 0. Type brick ID, and component ID for other bricks. Both the component ID and brick ID can be read from the component list. Notice that a structure spanning multiple bricks can be correctly selected. The paintbrush tool can also be used to select components. There's no need to cover an entire structure with the brush. Enable the brush and paint on one spot of a disk. Click Full Fill to fully select the partial component. The brush tool can be applied to multiple components. Partially select two disks using 2 strokes. Both can be correctly fulfilled. To select all analyzed components from the list, type All as the ID, and then click Append to select them. Analyzed components can be removed from the list. Highlight the components to be kept and click Include to remove other components. Select 3 disks to be included in the component list and click Include. Notice that disks spanning multiple bricks can be correctly included or removed. Click a disk to be excluded from the list and click Exclude to remove it. Similarly, the Exclude function can correctly identify disks spanning multiple bricks. A contact size threshold is used to combine components from different bricks. We demonstrate its use by first lowering the brick size to 128. When the same example dataset is loaded, more but smaller bricks will be used. A smaller iteration number can thus be used to generate the components. Observe the result to obtain the proper iteration number. Notice that a disk contains a very small component part, which can be included or excluded from the disk depending on the contact size setting. Use the highlight function to check if the small part is combined. Increasing the contact size will separate the small part. Click Analyze to recalculate the list. And the small part is separated as a standalone component. Since in this case we want to include the small part in the disk, we reset the contact size and recalculate the component list. Use this function to control how bricks are stitched in the streaming mode. The combination of brush selection and component analysis in the streaming mode also makes real-time large data analysis a reality. Further lower the brick size in the settings to simulate how a large dataset is divided. When we load the example dataset, it will be divided into many bricks. Although we can further lower the number of iterations for component generation, it also takes longer time to compute the result, making interactive adjustments impossible. But we can still focus on local structures in a large data set. Use the paintbrush tool to select local structures and constrain the scope of analysis. For example, select a small disk using the paintbrush. In the Component Analyzer window, enable Use Selection and generate components. Now, only bricks covering the selected disk are included in the calculation. We can interactively adjust the parameters for the component generation results. For a real-world large dataset, choose a brick size comparable to the size of structures and achieve interactive analysis. Successive brush strokes are also supported. For example, select 2 small disks and all relevant bricks are included in the calculation. To analyze the selected structures, click Analyze Selection in the Component Analyzer. Information of only selected structures is listed. In summary, we enabled component analysis in the large data streaming mode. Correct structural information is computed by combining components from different bricks. Interactivity is maintained for large data when local structures are selected using the brush.